Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. The top stories this hour. President Tinubu sets to travel to France on a short working visit. And Edo Elections Petitions Tribunal dismisses a court party's case against Governor Bola. Also coming up, Guinea's junta fixes September date for constitutional referendum. Details coming up shortly. Now let's begin by telling you that President Bola Tinubu is set to travel to the French capital, Paris, on Wednesday on a short working visit. A statement signed by President's spokesman, Bayo Onanuga, noted that the president plans to use his time in France to appraise his administration's midterm performance ahead of his second anniversary, although it didn't say when he'll return. Wednesday's trip comes as the latest of many such trips the president has made to France since he came into office, with many Nigerians frequently questioning whether there weren't equally benefiting or befitting locations in Nigeria where the president can spend his holidays as a way of cutting down on cost and preserving national honor. Now to politics. The Edo Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal has also dismissed the petition of a court party alleging non-compliance and declaration of Governor Bola as governor of Edo State. The tribunal delivered 4 rulings. In the first ruling, the tribunal, led by Justice Wilfred Pichi, stated that a court party failed to provide sufficient evidence to support their claims of non-compliance and resolved the motion against the petitioners. The second ruling addressed the court party's allegations that Bola did not receive the required numbers of lawful votes, resolving the motion in favor of Bola. In the third and fourth rulings, the tribunal dismissed the accord party's request to declare their candidate the winner of the election. Now, joining us now to have a discussion on this is legal practitioner Elvis Asia. Elvis, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on the program.
So, Elvis, the tribunal dismissed the petition filed by the Action Alliance and accord party challenging the outcome. Do you think this was expected?
Quite frankly, this was clearly expected. Election petitions are very serious business. They are very technical issues. Even the way a manner of petition should be couched, all of those appears to have been flouted, particularly by the accord party. So I'm not really surprised at the decision because, like I said, the Electoral Act details the way a manner your petition should be before the tribunal. And the burden on the petitioner, an election petition, is not a small one. It's really a very serious burden. And it will appear that those 2 petitions were not didn't meet up with that bar that has been set by the Electoral Act. And on that basis, they were justifiably, and quite frankly, questionably dismissed by the tribunal.
Judgment is based purely on legal grounds, unaffected by political pressure or public opinion surrounding the election results.
It's a difficult balancing. Whichever decision that comes out of a tribunal today will be celebrated by some people, and some others would accuse the tribunal of bias or some political influence. It's a very sad reality in our judiciary today. But before you can actually comfortably criticize the decision of a tribunal or any court for that matter, you must actually have looked at the facts as pleaded before the court. And so, unlike, contrary to the popular opinion out there, judges still, stick to the facts. In most cases, they still stick with the law. And electoral jurisprudence is quite dicey because, I have always maintained that the way the law is framed, it's almost an impossible task for a petitioner to succeed before in an election petition case. The hurdle that he must surmount to be able to succeed is so high that in most cases, tribunals are quite frankly, fairly criticized without due regards to the laws and the evidence and the facts that are placed before them. So it's a difficult balancing that they have to carry out. The court must do justice without regards to sentiments whether expressed in social media or by members of the public. What is important is that they have to look at the facts before them. They will have to look at the laws before them, and applying the law to the facts, they will come to a decision. You may not like it, but if it is properly, that discussion is properly exercised, it's always going to be very difficult for you to successfully accuse a court or a tribunal of bias if they stick with the law and the facts as placed before them.
Okay. So what if the tribunal rules in favor of other petitioners? What legal remedies or sanctions could be imposed on the respondents?
Well, I mean, if the tribunal rules in favor of the petitioners, then of course they also appeal, and then it depends on what you're asking. For example, in the case of the accord party, they had various reliefs, including that they should be declared. And then they talk about irregularities and all of that. So it depends on what you are claiming for the relief that is being claimed. So if the relief is that you should be declared and you are so declared, but don't forget that the respondent, who is the governor currently or the ruling party, will still have the legal recourse of appeal. And until that appeal process is completely discharged, he will remain in office. So, what you get from the tribunal is a function of the reliefs that you are seeking, and those reliefs are circumscribed by the Electoral Act. You can either be asking that an election be, an election be set aside on the basis of non-compliance with the Electoral Act, or that you won the elections. And if you are asking for later, then you have to bring evidence. It's not enough to just say you won the election. You have to bring the evidence that shows that you have won the election. So the release will determine what the court will grant. But a respondent would always have the right to appeal until the appeal process is completely exhausted. One cannot really say as a final statement as to what relief will be eventually granted. So the respondent will have the right to appeal, and that appeal process will have to be concluded before you can finally determine what happens. But there are various relief that the court can make. The court can grant, election petitions are sui generis, as they say. So it's specific with respect to the release that you are seeking.
Well, Elvis Asia, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon to give your 2 pence on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on now, suspended senator representing Kogi Central, Natasha Akpoti-Oduaghan, has received a rousing welcome from her supporters in Kogi State, despite a ban on political rallies and a curfew imposed in her local government. Her return, a few weeks after her suspension from the Nigerian Senate, was marked by a large gathering in Okechi local government area, her hometown. News Central's correspondent Sagir Ibrahim, who is currently in her senatorial district, brings details in this report.
Nobody and nothing can stop me from coming home. I am an Ebira woman.
A crowd of enthusiastic supporters flooded the residence of Natasha Akpoti-Oduaghan in Ihima Okehi local government just hours after the Kogi State government imposed a ban on political gatherings in the area. The curfew and rally restrictions, announced barely 24 hours before her arrival, did little to deter residents who defied the order to show solidarity with the embattled lawmaker currently suspended from legislative functions at the National Assembly. The suspended lawmaker went on to recount what she described as intimidation and political persecution.
The entire country is suffering from bad leadership. The only reason why I have been persecuted so much in the past 1 month is because I dared the bad, corrupt system. I refuse to do things the way they usually play politics. I refuse to be silenced.
Addressing the crowd at her country home, Akpoti-Oduaghan said she is being punished for speaking out against bad governance.
I went out there in Abuja and I worked for you. As I brought the dividends of democracy to you, I created enemies among some of my colleagues. Natasha, your empowerment, by your empowerments, you're making our constituents insult us.
Senator Dwaha also called on the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to maintain neutrality in overseeing the recall process, warning that the international community is watching closely.
And this actually is another litmus test on INEC to redeem its image. From my own personal perspective, what I see INEC doing is aiding and guiding the petitioners on how to perfect their illicit acts. The first time the petition was submitted, they didn't have address, phone numbers, and all of that. So we ran a check on the status of registration of the association, which sponsored my recall, and the CAC report came negative that association is not registered.
With legal and political battles still looming, the embattled senator remains defiant, pledging to continue speaking truth to power. In Ihima Okei local government, for News Central, I'm Sagir Ibrahim.
Election stakeholders in Nigeria have called for enforcement of laws on campaign financing in the country. They say this remains a major challenge in the nation's democratic process, following a recent report which revealed that major political parties violated provisions of the Electoral Act during the 2024 governorship elections in Edo and Ondo State. Our correspondent Idong Joseph here reports.
Running for political office in Nigeria has become increasingly expensive, with nomination forms, campaign adverts, rallies, and staff salaries costing millions or even billions of naira. However, there are legal limits to how much a candidate can spend in an election cycle. Section 88, subsection 2 to 7 of the amended Electoral Act of 2022 set spending caps for candidates to the level playing field and prevent election from becoming a context of wealth.
I remember following the campaign expenses of the last presidential election in the U.S. Even about a few months to the elections, candidates are already spending. Each of the candidates spent, the leading candidate spent over $3 billion, right? Even before the elections. So it shows you that money is very important in any elections. But giving money free rein in elections and political process sometimes can end up in anarchy.
Despite the 5 billion naira spending cap for presidential candidates and 1 billion naira for governorship candidates, a new survey by Kimpak's Development Initiative on the Ondo and Edo state governorship elections shows that individual candidates far exceeded these limits.
If you look at the known income for both the party and even the candidate, it's not even in billions. I think the highest, for instance, the known income for APC in Edo is barely 800 million, right? For that of Labour Party is about 800 or about 1.04 billion. That's for Labour Party. And I'm talking about PDP. PDP's known income is about 600 million.
So far, no sanctions have been imposed on violators since the Electoral Act was amended in 2022. The Interparty Advisory Council of Nigeria and election observers warn that continued disregard for spending limits threatens democracy and are calling for stricter enforcement of election finance laws.
Let us try as much as possible to see how we can adhere to this law, and anybody who violates this law should be heavily penalized. I think that is the only way we can, because we need to sanitize our electoral process.
I do believe that we have an opportunity now with the current electoral reform process. For one, a political party regulations commission to be established.
With stakeholders raising fresh concerns about money influencing the democratic process, experts expressed concerns, saying extravagant spending during elections is making the field more uneven. In Abuja for News Central, Idong Joseph.
Let's go on a break now. When we return, President Tinubu removes Malakiari as Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPCL and appoints Ojulari as replacement. Stay with us. There's more in the news after. You're welcome back. Now, the federal government has announced the temporary closure of the Independence Bridge, Marina bound, for maintenance starting April 1st. The Federal Controller of Works in Lagos, Mrs. Olukorede Kesha, confirmed the closure last Wednesday, or rather last week. I beg your pardon. She confirmed that it will last until May 2025. The move affects traffic from Amadu Bello Way and Adeola Odeku heading to Marina, Eco Bridge and Onika. Motorists are advised to use alternative routes to avoid delays. Kesha apologized for the inconvenience and urged public cooperation, stressing that the maintenance is crucial for safety. For now, commuters should plan ahead as Lagos navigates this major roadwork. On standby, we have our News Central correspondent Israel Efirobo, who is on the streets at the location to tell us more, give us more details about the closure. Israel, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. What can you tell us about the closure of the bridge, please?
So much happening here today. A while back, I was trying to speak to someone who was just passing by, and she was really angry with the whole situation of things here at the Independence Bridge inwards, just from Bonicamp inwards Amadu Bello and down to Adeola Odeku. It's a really terrible traffic. A lot of people have been stuck in this traffic for hours, and this traffic has spilled, into other alternative routes inwards the island and inwards Victoria Island, outside Victoria Island as well. Now, this is for the single reason of the Independence Bridge closure for repairs and maintenance work. It started yesterday and it will last for the next 8 weeks, we have been told. The bottom line is so many people, so many Lagosians are at this moment, stranded at various bus stops coming into the island from the Third Mainland Bridge down into the island. But Balen Day, that's what we're coming through as well. We saw so many people at the bus stops with nowhere to go to. And indeed, the situation is just the way I have described it. It is for so many of them. And we're hoping that this will get better for them.
Well, Israel, I'm hoping that you can hear me. I want to know, how far back does the traffic stretch? Israel, I'm going to repeat the question. I'm asking, how far back does the traffic stretch?
Traffic stretches further down. Amadu Bello Way, all the way to Adeola Odeku as well, into the adjoining streets on Adeola Odeku, down to Falomo as well. This is what we have been experiencing since about 8 o'clock this morning, and the situation has not abated. It is still as worrying as it started at about 8 o'clock, as you know.
Israel, what alternative routes have been advised for motorists? Do you have that information? Well, unfortunately,
I think the only information that we have gotten so far is the fact that Lagosians are not happy. They're asking the question right now, but apparently some of them do not understand the fact that this bridge closure is going to be for about 8 weeks. They are thinking that there was the weekend and then the public holiday. So why didn't the government, do any repair work during that period? But it's not a case of a 4 days job or a 2-day job. It is an 8 weeks job. So whichever way you want to look at it, it has to go through the entire process. It has to go through the entire stretch of 8 weeks. That's 2 months. And these four negotiations will have to bear with at this point in time. There are no solutions right now. The only solution is for the travel advisory that has been given to Lagosians to use alternative routes if you're trying to navigate into Victoria Island and outside Victoria Island as well. If you want to make use of the Bonicamp section of the state, you should know when to use it as well. Because the two bridges that we have here, we only have just one of the bridges that are closed, not both sides of the bridge. So one section of the bridge is open, but so the other section of the bridge is not open right now, which is where the repair works is ongoing right now. We understand it will go on for it's in phases. So for the moment, it is just the first part of the bridge coming from Amadu Bello, heading towards Onika. That's where this issue is right now. This traffic you see behind me stretches all the way down to Amadu Bello Way and into Adeola Odeku as well. So basically, these are the much information that we've been able to gather since we arrived here a few hours ago, Masino.
All right. Are there people on ground already for the maintenance work? Unfortunately, we are unable to reach Israel now because of the bad connection. It is raining in Lagos, so perhaps that would be why. But let's move on. The people of Nsulu, Isiala, Ngwa North local government area of Abia State may have come to terms with the government's insistence on siting the airport in their community. It has been months of engagements and back and forth with stakeholders from the communities concerning the carriage and also the fears of the acreage and the fears of the people that they may just lose their farmlands and also other things. News Central Chinwe Ugeli here has the details.
Villagers cannot contain their joy at the sight of these earth-moving vehicles mowing down trees and clearing the road leading to the airport site. It must have been a surprise for the people to see action already in a short time.
I've experienced several governmental administrations come and pass. I think the administration of Dr. Alex Chomoti has distinguished itself from what we used to have.
The Zulu people are very happy and excited because for a long time there have been kind of agitations. It will work, it will not work, but to the glory of God today it happened that the whole process or the project have started.
The leader of the landowners for Abia State Airport, Nsulu, and chairman of the Memorandum of Agreement Committee, Oza Zubike, is pleased that Governor Alex Oti listened to their plea to reduce the size of the land from the initial 1,800 hectares to 1,000 hectares.
We ask God to bless him, if not for any other reason, for the fact that he remembered the Zulu people and honored us with this. Today, there is nobody anywhere in the world that listens to the electronic mass or print media that does not know the Zulu people. They have firmly planted us on the map of the world. We are grateful.
Speaking at the site in Omalu, Zulu, Isialanga North, the Chief of Staff to the Governor, Caleb Ajaba, says the government of Alex Oti has shown sincerity of purpose in partnering the federal government for the project, as well as paying compensations to the landowners.
You can see palpable joy. Everybody is happy because transparency is what re-engineers trust. And that's one thing that you can't take for granted in the administration of His Excellency. That tells you that every gray areas have already been sorted, and whatever is left will also be amicably addressed.
Also, the Special Assistant to the Governor on Land and Housing and Project Coordinator for the Abia State Airport Project, Okorogo Aji, says the clearing of access road marks a milestone in the project.
But this is something that has never happened in Abia State before, and thank God for His Excellency who deemed it, good to have this type of project.
Some of the villagers have these to say.
We promise to support government for the project, and the promise to secure all the materials for the project.
We are happy, we thank God, but we are looking forward for government to take care of us and our children. So our land have finished, even if they have finished, but we pray that God will touch their mind to help us in the future, mainly our children.
The argument around the commitment of government to this airport project may have been put to rest with this move, which is part of the fulfillment of the state government's contribution to the partnership with the federal government for the project. In Omaha for News Central, Chinwe Ugeli.
Now to the energy sector. President Bola Tinubu has approved the reconstitution of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited Board, removing the chairman, Chief Pius Akinyelure, and the Group Chief Executive Officer Mele Kyari. In a statement by Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, in the early hours of Wednesday, Tinubu removed all other board members appointed with Akinyelure and Kyari in November 2023. The new 11-man board has Engineer Bashir Ojulari as the Group CEO and Amadou Kida as non-executive chairman. Tinubu emphasized that the restructuring is vital for improving operational efficiency, restoring investor confidence, and advancing economic growth, with plans to increase oil production to 3 million barrels daily by 2030 and gas production to 10 billion cubic feet daily. Now, away from that, the Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC, has called on states and relevant authorities to enforce stricter road safety regulations, especially concerning truck standards and driver behavior. FRSC spokesman Olusegun Ogungbemide expressed concerns over the poor condition of trucks on Nigerian roads, including issues such as poor maintenance, speeding, and traffic law violations. This follows a recent tank explosion on the Nyanya-Mararaba Expressway caused by a cement-laden Dangote truck with failed brakes that collided with other vehicles, triggering a deadly fire. The declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State was premised on attempts to sabotage critical oil infrastructure, amongst other reasons. Given the paramount importance of crude oil exploration to Nigeria's economy, Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited, the agency responsible for monitoring the Trans-Niger Pipeline, is proactively engaging with local communities to collaboratively combat vandalism and protect pipeline infrastructure in the Niger Delta region. Our correspondent, Biola, has more on this.
An early morning explosion rocked the Trans-Niger Pipeline in Bodo, Gokana local government area of Rivers State on March 18th. Later same day, President Bola Tinubu declared a state of emergency in Rivers State, citing pipeline vandalism as one of the primary reasons. In response to the recent explosions targeting oil infrastructure across the Niger Delta region, Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited, a surveillance agency responsible for safeguarding the Trans-Niger Pipeline, is conducting stakeholder sensitization programs across oil-producing communities. The initiative aims to educate and engage local stakeholders on the importance of collaborative efforts to protect crude oil infrastructure within their areas.
Trans-Niger Pipeline is one of the most critical assets where all the oil we will use in Imo, Abia, Rivers, and even some part of Bayelsa. Yeah, that is the only line that transports crude oil to Bonny Terminal. So if that line is shut down for 1 hour, it's a national security issue.
Given the pipeline's importance, vandalism and explosions could have severe consequences, including oil spills and environmental damage.
We as traditional rulers will try as much as possible to educate them, counsel them that if this line are long, we will solve. We have to go beyond protecting the pipelines and look at those who are doing the protection of the pipelines. We have to acknowledge the fact that most communities through these pipelines are living out there.
Ekpe is a peaceful nation. You will agree that the pipeline that traverses our area is safe. Our youth have conducted themselves very well.
Stakeholders across the Niger Delta also want the federal government to keep its part of the bargain, which includes implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act.
Coming up, Senegalese civil society groups oppose amnesty law revision. We'll tell you more after the break. Join us again. Welcome back. Guinea's ruling junta has announced that a referendum on a new constitution will be held on September 21st in a major step toward a return to democratic rule. The announcement was made in a presidential decree read on state television on Tuesday. The junta, which seized power in 2021 and suspended the previous constitution, had initially delayed its transition timeline. However, junta leader General Mamadi Doumbouya reaffirmed in his New Year address that 2025 would be a crucial electoral year for the country. Despite this pledge, concerns remain over political repression. Two prominent opposition figures, Umar Sila and Mamadou Biloba, who have called for a return to civilian rule, have been missing since last July. Guinea, a key bauxite and iron ore producer, remains under regional and international pressure to restore civilian governance. And in Senegal, 20 civil society organizations have voiced strong opposition to a proposed revision of an amnesty law that would pardon individuals involved in deadly political violence under the previous administration. Critics argue that the amendment is intended to shield those responsible for serious crimes committed during 3 years of political unrest between February 2021 and February 2024. The organizations are urging the government to postpone the vote scheduled to take place in the National Assembly today and instead initiate an inclusive national dialogue to ensure justice and accountability. The controversial proposal has sparked heated debates across the country, with many demanding greater transparency and fairness in addressing Senegal's recent political crises. Now, the Democratic Alliance in Gauteng is demanding the immediate dismissal of 10 teachers who are convicted sexual offenders but still working with children at Gauteng schools. This was revealed in replies to 2 DA oral questions in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, according to the member of the Executive Committee for Education, Matome Chilian. 12 teachers were found to have criminal records for sexual offenses, of which 9 are still working at schools, even though there is a vetting process in place. Now, Chilian revealed that a total of 40 teachers over the past 3 years had been convicted in a court of law for sexual offenses. One of the teachers is still working for the department and has received a final written warning. Now, to discuss this further, we are joined by DA Gauteng spokesperson for Education, Michael Waters. Michael, thank you for joining us. Good afternoon.
To you and your viewers.
Great, thank you for joining. Now, Mr. Waters, what are the current statistics regarding the number of teachers in South Africa who are registered sex offenders?
So we don't know the full figure, because the government has failed to vet teachers before they actually are employed. And so I can give you figures of what's happened. Currently in the Gauteng province alone, and it's only one province, they've conducted vetting of 9% of all teachers. We have about 86,000 teachers in our province, and there were 12 teachers that were found to have criminal records before they were employed by the department. So sexual predators, as you know, they prey on children, and of these 12 that were found to have criminal records, they were either working at primary schools or at schools where children have special needs. So they're really preying on the vulnerable of our society. Now, out of those 12, 9 are still working for the department, and it's an absolute disgrace. They should be dismissed immediately in order to protect our children.
Okay, Michael, you say that the information is unknown. Does this mean that there is no system currently in place for identifying and reporting sex offenders with the teaching profession, or is it that there is a system that doesn't work?
There's a system that's not being implemented. So we have some great laws here. We have the Children's Act, which clearly states that before any person is employed in the public sector that works with children in any capacity, so it could be a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, etc., they have to be vetted against 2 registers. We actually have 2 registers. We have one that's called the Child Protection Register, and the other one is the National Register of Sex Offenders. And both, an individual's name is supposed to be vetted against both these registers before they can be employed, and it's simply not happening. And what we are doing to our children, we're placing them in harm's way by allowing these predators to work with them and to prey on them.
So what specific policies are being suggested by the DA to ensure the safety of learners from sexual predators within schools then?
Well, we need a streamlined process where both registers are combined and where it is free for departments to vet individual teachers. So currently they get charged 40 Rand per vetting process. And if you have 86,000 teachers in one province, you can multiply that by 14. That gives you an indication of the cost. So it's punitive. We are calling for a streamlined process that is free and where priority is given to departments where, like the education or health, where there's a huge number of children that access those services on a daily basis.
Mr. Michael Waters, I want to say thank you very much for joining us to give us more detail on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And now we return to the streets of Lagos, where we have our News Central correspondent, Omolola Ololade, who is currently at Iyanoworo to give us details about the state of things on the roads. Lola, thank you very much for joining us. Please can you give us a detailed update on what's happening at your location? Well, I guess we'll be bringing you that information later. Do stay with us as we continue to monitor the situation around Lagos State as the bridge closure into the island is affecting transport movements across Lagos. Do stay with us on that one. Moving on now. The former president, Jacob Zuma's party, MK in Huateng, has taken to the streets on a 14-hour walk to voice their grievances following the controversial outcome of the 2024 elections. They marched from Pretoria to the Day Institutional Hill, where they delivered a memorandum outlining their allegations of electoral misconduct. News Central's Bongani Sisiba has more.
A moment that could influence South Africa's democratic landscape, the Constitutional Court is once again being tested. The party of former President Jacob Zuma, Umkhonto weSizwe, gathered to address what they assert are significant irregularities in the 2024 election process.
What we have seen during the 2024 elections leaves a sour taste in our mouth as MK party, because we are convinced and we are sure, because of the evidence that we will go and present at the Pietermaritzburg High Court, that our votes were not given to us and our votes were stolen.
Party members, supporters have assembled to render their memorandum of grievances, a formal assertion that the electoral process failed to meet the standards of transparency and fairness.
We are saying our votes were rigged, and we have that as a proof, because remember, we all know that in 2024 Goma votes, the system went down. And then after a certain while, I think it was 2 hours, and then they came that they say that Umkhonto weSizwe is number 3. But numerically, when we are counting the votes, Umkhonto weSizwe is leading. It cannot be that ETA is leading Umkhonto weSizwe.
We as the MK youth, we say we will stand with the mother port, we stand with all the branches, we stand with everything to bring back our vote. Amanta!
Because we want those votes back, and we can do whatever it takes to get them back, because we are robbed. We want to govern this country at the end of the day. So right now, the government is trying to oppress us by all means. So we are saying no against that. That's all I'm saying.
The party claims the election was marred by irregularities, asserting that the results simply do not add up. They say it defies logic that the Democratic Alliance, even with 100% voter turnout, could surpass Umkhonto weSizwe in the electoral race in 2024.
eParliament kunalabo abantshontsha amavoto wethu, eIEC kunalabo abantu abantshontsha amavoto wethu. Sithi kungcono size la ecourt yokugcina sizocela ukuthi basincede.
The Umkhonto weSizwe, in its quest for justice and accountability, undertook a 14 hours walk from Pretoria to hand in a memorandum here at the Constitutional Hill.
We stand and say we are here for our votes. I'm
just here to accept your memorandum. We also acknowledge your constitutional right to march to the Constitutional Court. And then I hereby promise that this memorandum will be submitted to the relevant authorities, and then you will get your response in due course.
For the former President Zuma's party, MK, this isn't just a walk. It's a mission to reclaim integrity in elections and ensure that every citizen's voice counts. In Johannesburg for News Central, Wangani Siziba.
Let's go on a quick break. When we return, business. Welcome back. We now return to the streets of Lagos, where we have our News Central correspondent, Omolola Ololade, who is at Iyanoworo, to give us the state of things on the streets as the road closures on the island are affecting traffic movements across Lagos. Omolola, it's good to have you here. We're hoping we can hear you, or rather you can hear us from our news center here, Omolola.
You can see now towards the estate on your way to Iyanoworo, the road is quite clean and the road is clearing. Although there is a huge traffic on the road of the bad road, just before the traffic. The truck itself, you can look at it close to see the truck on the other side of the road, where they've been able to clear the truck so that they can have some of the part of the road free for commuters.
Well, we are having bad audio there. We will come back to Omolola. Please do stay tuned. If you stay with us here at News Central, we'll be bringing you updates even after the news bulletin now, so please do stay with us. And that's all for this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. We're told President Tinubu is set to travel to France on a short working visit. And also, Edo Election Petition Tribunal has dismissed the court party's case against Governor Bola. We also told you that Guinea's junta has fixed September date for constitutional referendum. So remember, you may send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on your screen. And do remember to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.